So this first question, more than likely you have got it before, which is how you got into dog training.
I got into dog training through veterinary medicine. I was a veterinary technician for like 18 years. I worked in vet med for 18 years
Yeah.
before I started doing dog training full time, and it was just something that I did on the side.
And what got you into animals?
Genetics.
Okay.
Dog trainers go back in my family every single generation since slavery. So, though I am adopted, I still became a dog trainer. No lie.
I
My
see.
parents
That's
don't
interesting.
like
And
my. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, go ahead. Finish the thought.
I'm gonna sneeze. Speaking of
Bless
animals,
you.
I'm
Bless
allergic
you.
to horses, and I am with them every single day, and I just push through. Okay, so my grandfather was the president's dog trainer, one of the president's dog trainers, Eisenhower, and he was a really famous gun dog trainer in the South in the 50s and 60s. Well, really, probably the 40s through the 60s. And so, and that's gone on and on and on, back and back and back in my family. And so my mother had me very young and I'm adopted. But my dad, my adopted dad, which, my mom and my dad,
Yeah.
he is a cowboy. He was an old cowboy and he grew up on a cattle ranch and was just really into nature and animals. He was also a Marine, so he's really good with guns. And so I just ended up in the absolute perfect spot to develop that out in me anyway. And out it came. And I've just always been really obsessed. I would say obsessed with farm life and animals and the country and things like that.
That's so interesting. It's really cool that how ancestors from your ancestors were interacting with animals, and you still like them. That's very cool. And
Yeah.
when you were a veterinary technician, what make you transition to being a dog trainer?
Well, I didn't want to become a veterinarian because I knew it would be a ton more school. And I was also, at that time I was in my late 30s and I had three children. So it's really conducive. And I was, just single. You can't really, I mean, I think that there's always a way, but I didn't want to be a veterinarian that bad. I did not
I
to
see.
figure out how to make all of that work. I had a friend who I worked with at the time that said she would do it. She wanted to do it, and it was her calling for her life. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to figure out what I got to do because it was this dream that a little group of us had together at this particular vet clinic that I worked at to get out of there and still
I
figure out how
see.
to work together. So I didn't want to become a veterinarian. Somebody else was going to do it. It's not in the cards. And I always had trained dogs. I had just always kind of done it on the side. And I also always had really phenomenal dogs that were much better behaved than everyone else's and that spent most of their time with me. So it seemed like a natural transition to go that direction.
So it felt normal. Like it felt like as if you belong training dogs.
Yeah, it really did. And I think it gave me the freedom to be creative and to be my own boss, which I had not had that opportunity to before. And I really do not care to work for other people. I think that in general, I just don't understand a lot of the practices and things that they do because I think sometimes people are just coming from a different place.
Yeah.
So for me, I can, I get to be the boss and structure everything the way that I think is best. And um, I think I do a lot better in leadership roles.
And did you knew that dog training was your calling, or you figured it out when you started doing it?
My calling is to help people. My calling, my specific calling, is to help women meet themselves. So my calling isn't really
Okay.
dog training. It's just
Okay.
it's just my profession, and it's what I use to get to people. It's just what I use to get
Okay.
to
I
the
see.
person that has the dog. I mean, dogs are great. They're my favorite species. I love them. I could tell you everything about them. But my actual purpose that I feel like I am here as a unique individual for is to help people. I don't know the word for it. Transform? It's to help people transform.
Okay. And
That was kind of a deep
I know this
answer,
is not
wasn't
about
it?
deep answer. No, I mean, I know this is not about dog training, but now I'm curious. Like, what makes you think that that's like? Why do you believe that's your calling?
Well, for a lot of reasons. The main reason would be the decade that I spent in addiction, alcoholism, homelessness, sex work, just really dark places emotionally, spiritually, physically. And I have, a story to tell about how I came out of that. And I think that that story, every time I tell it, and I don't hide behind it, and I'm not ashamed of it, it helps someone else step out of the shadow of their own shame in their own, and so that's how I get people as I talk about dog training, and I'm a dog trainer. But once they're near me, they're going to hear
You
a
open up.
lot of different stuff. Yeah, about hey, if you want to change something about yourself, I can help you. Like, come here. I'll tell you what I did. That's all I have really is the stuff that I've done. I don't, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a therapist. I don't, that's, I'm never going to claim to be that. I'm just a person with a story that isn't afraid to share it and has a lot of experience helping other people tell their story.
I see. So, would you consider yourself being a dog trainer, or do you consider yourself like a life coach?
I'm kind of like a sponsor for people that are trying to recover a dog because they're really not, they're trying to recover a relationship. And the
Yeah,
negative consequences are that the dog is having all these behaviors, but the dog is with them. The dog is with them on their watch. And if
I
that
see.
dog was with me, that wouldn't have happened. If that dog was with my mentor, that wouldn't have happened. If that dog was with any of my trainers, that wouldn't have happened. So it's a whole different way of, like, I understand that people's dogs are doing whatever behavior. That's cool. I've heard that before. Not the first time a dog has lunged.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
how did it get to the point that this dog is lunging on this leash? How did that happen? Did the dog put a leash on itself and go outside and
And sorry.
walk itself and decide? It's it's starting to, my process that I go through with people removes their dog from being responsible for any of it. And it's only the things that we're responsible for and the things that we can do, the ways that we can grow, the things that we can change. Because a dog is just a dog. They're doing exactly what dogs do all of the time. They can only do dog things. So when we're like, oh, well, my dog is doing this and I don't, it's doing da 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 da. Well, I understand that that's what it's doing, but that's a symptom of living with you. I mean, isn't that true?
I
Isn't that
Yeah,
true
I,
with
I do.
children?
Yeah, I do agree that the way that a dog behaves, it's depends a lot on the person that is raising them.
Yeah. Just like with kids, there are people that have a lot of warmth and life experience and compassion and empathy, and they have children. And their
Yeah,
children are just, oh, you can see that they really kind of get it and they're doing such
yeah,
a great job. And the person right next to them who has just as much value as a human being, who has really just as much to offer the world, maybe doesn't have some of that information. And maybe they're still doing it kind of an old way. And their kid is maybe a little bit scared of them. They still love each other. They still have love there. They're still parenting. They're trying. They're putting the effort forward. But they're not doing with this. And maybe this person over here has a ton of money.
I
And
see.
maybe this person over here doesn't have a lot of money, but God, they got a lot of love. Or this person has access to all this outside stuff. Maybe they had a dad that was a cowboy. Maybe they didn't. Maybe
Yeah,
they had a dad that was an accountant that worked long hours that didn't talk to them a lot. Everybody has this different experience. And when you have a dog, that's the position that you're in, whether you like it or not. You're kind of their parent. You know,
Yeah.
for all intents and purposes, I mean, you're responsible for their shelter, their food, their manners, how they move about in society, whether they're safe or not. So it's, if that's the kind of relationship it is, then who is responsible? We can't call dog
For
trainers and go, oh my God, my dog is just so stubborn. Oh my gosh, my dog is this, my dog is that, your dog is dogging. It is dogging. It's
yeah,
doing dog stuff.
yeah.
That's
Just doing dog stuff. I
the
agree.
paradigm shift I would like to have for most people to have.
Yeah, I think right now a lot of people humanize their dogs. I think a lot of people just also get the dog for the wrong reason. A lot of people think that getting a dog is just pets, cuddles, and hanging out in the couch, and that's it. But I don't think they know how much exercise does a dog need or the type of work each dog need. And I think that's where most problems arouse because people don't know what
Yeah.
they're getting themselves into.
Yeah, I mean, if that one sentence doesn't say it all, they don't know what they're getting into. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, if they
One of the
thought about
reasons
it,
that sorry.
people humanize their dogs, but they do it in weird ways that show their trauma. They do it in weird ways that
Yeah.
show the way that they are dysfunctional. So maybe somebody has no management system with their dog, no boundaries. Their dog just runs all over the house all day long, jumping all over the furniture, barking at every window, basically doing whatever they want. Well, guess what? I can bet you that person's a people pleaser. I can bet you
Mm,
that that person lets people walk all over them. The same as I can look at a household and see a dog that is micromanaged and controlled and everything's, well, they probably deal with people that way, or maybe they were dealt with that way. It's so much more than the dog training.
the
That's like the easiest stuff about it.
but now that is really really interesting. I never thought about it like that way of how a dog behaves is how a person is living his life. I never thought about that. So
Yeah,
that
I'll give you another one. So, as within, so without.
okay.
A person that has a super, super messy house, what do they think that's doing to their dog? That
But
clutter everywhere, that lack of, that does something to beings to live like that. The same thing as a person, you could look at attachment styles too. What is a person's attachment style in relationship? There's several different ones. There's anxious, avoidant, healthy, disorganized. Anxious attachment people are like, I don't want you to leave. Are you coming back? Okay, you're here, but are you going to leave again? Avoidant people are like, doesn't matter. Zoning out of this, going to go do my own thing. Don't care.
I see.
Disorganized people, they don't know how they feel. And healthy people recognize that this is a relationship. I have security in you, those kinds of things. And so relationships of all kinds tend to be easier for those people because they have a healthy attachment style. If you're an anxious person by nature, well, I shouldn't say by nature, if you're an anxious person by, uh, you know, nature and nurture, let's say, that's going to affect the way that you're dealing with your dog, thinking about your dog. It's going to be riddled with anxiety, looping negative thoughts.
Yeah.
Where a person that maybe is a little more avoidant and chooses to just escape and shut it off, that person, their training is going to have different symptoms, or their relationship with their dog is going to have different symptoms. They're most likely not going to understand their dog very much. How could they? When it gets hard, they
That's
just
yeah. That's really
put it in the
interesting.
crate.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. That's so
And
interesting.
these aren't judgments, it's just observations that we can make about ourselves,
Yeah.
so that we can not keep repeating and repeating and repeating these things in relationship, whether it's with our dog or someone else.
Do you think a dog, like if your current dog is an extension from you?
I think that your dog is a reflection of the things that you need to work on. Ever,
Oh,
always revolving, always reflective of the totality of everything you've ever been and ever are up until that moment. A dog is a reflection of where you are at any given point in time. So if your dog is cooking and they're bouncing along and they're looking up at you happily, like that's a captured moment in time, because you can't come across that. You have to create it through relationship. If your dog is super anxious one day and seems off, what happened? What Not what happened, what in the external world can I blame? I
yeah.
mean, what's going on? Did you not do the stuff that you normally do with your dog because you're tripped out about your boyfriend or your girlfriend? And that's a valid reason to be upset about something. Maybe you're struggling with something emotionally. Maybe you're having a hard day. Maybe something happened at work, and so you couldn't meet the needs of your dog in the specific way that you normally do. And now your dog's a little off. That's a reflection of the fact that something's a little off and we need to work on that. I need to attend to that.
That's very interesting. I never thought about it like that.
Regardless of how great my relationship is with Enzo,
Yeah,
like people are like, "Oh, your relationship with Enzo is so great, so great, so great." Yes, that's nice, but it's because of the consistency of me paying attention to meeting his needs.
I see.
So there is not all this angst and resentment and like disappointment between us. I don't think that dogs can be resentful per se, but there's not, I think that they can be absolutely disappointed. Absolutely, they can be disappointed. And if you repetitively disappoint someone over time, that does something to your relationship. And I try not to repetitively disappoint my dog. I recognize that sometimes I will, because everyone has to suffer disappointment in a relationship. Sometimes I will, but I try to like mitigate that as much as I can, and to prevent that as much as I can, so that when something comes up and I'm off, it'll be okay, because we have this great strong relationship, because all the time I'm trying to be on it, you know. And so when I do have a hard time, when I do struggle, when I do need days off or whatever, it's not a big deal because we're solid. We're
I
solid.
see.
But that's not what people are doing. What people
Yeah,
are doing is going to work, coming home, doing not shit, and then wanting the relationship that I have with my dog, which
yeah. It's
did not get it that way. I
yeah.
didn't get it that way.
I agree. When I was researching your profile to get some questions, I saw that the amount of time you put to your dog is not the amount of time that a lot of people will put on it. Like that type of relationship.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I mean that's
Thank you for noticing.
yeah, I mean that type of relationship is very weird to see when a
Mm-hmm.
dog is.
So, what I want to say about that is this, and thank you for saying that. If I am supposed to be, and I hope to be one day, one of the greatest human canine relationship coaches ever, like the best kindergarten teacher of it ever. That's my goal. Why
Okay,
wouldn't you see that in my life?
yeah,
It would be like somebody pretending to be the best surfer ever, but all they ever do is teach new people how to get on a surfboard for the first time. How, okay, how can I be sure that you should see that reflected in their own relationship with their dog? You should see them spending tons and tons. Denise Fenzi, that's my mentor. You talked to her.
I know. I
She's the
talked to her.
greatest dog
Yes.
trainer of all time that will ever live, ever. I don't care what anybody says. I will fight. I will rip off this hoodie right now and fight people over it. I think that she is the greatest of all time. I can see why. I can just watch her. She didn't have to fucking say nothing. I just watch her and I'm like, because the proof is in the pudding. It's right in front of you. And she breaks it
Yeah,
down and she makes it all free. She brings you in. That's an educator. That's a leader. But people that go around talking about dog training and they're putting their hands on all these thousands of different dogs all the time and da 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 da. Where's your dog? Your dog is at home. Your dog is at home while you are doing that. And I find that to be quite hypocritical. It's just, I mean, it's really how I feel about it. I think we should try as much as we can to represent the art of relationship and not the art of the one night stand. And that's what is happening in the industry is a bunch of one night stands. And the more you have and the cooler video editing you have around that, the more you can look like you really did that in that one
Yeah,
thing. It makes you popular when in reality, it's the people that are willing to talk about what their relationship with their own dog is like and what they have seen in their clients' relationships with their dogs.
I do agree with everything you said. When the reason I started this channel is because I also train dogs, and in my opinion, I figured out really quick actually that the best way to train a dog is having a relationship with the dog.
Mm.
Because if not, the dog won't listen to you, and
Yeah,
he
they're like,
won't.
who are you? I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, and he won't be excited to working with you.
Yeah.
Like the dogs, you can see like the personality of a dog when they trust you. So that's
Yeah.
so that's one of the biggest thing that I noticed at first, that having a relationship with your dog has to be the priority before
Hmm.
you start training.
That's right. Yeah. Because it's weird to ask stuff,
Yeah, yeah,
like if we all put ourselves in the position of being in a new relationship and then this person starts asking us all this stuff that's supposed to be down the line in month 3, we would think they were being a
yeah,
little bit overwhelming. Like, wow, you're moving
yeah,
too fast. You're going too fast. But, people don't want to hear about the stuff that's long game. They don't want to, it's a lot of, we unfortunately live in a world of instant gratification, and
yeah,
being
yeah,
skilled at delayed gratification is rare. So I would
yeah.
encourage people to really think on that because it's worth
I
it.
do. Yeah, I do agree. Also, going back uh, to your point before this, you said that a lot of people get a dog, they train dogs, they get the video, and they don't post their dog, and you thought that was like bad from their part, and I do agree, and that's actually the reason that I don't have a dog for myself yet, because I spent
Good for
maybe
you.
then like maybe from 8 to 3 training dogs, and when I get home, I'm gonna be honest, I don't want to deal with more dogs for quite a couple
I
hours.
think it's incredibly brave and really inspiring that you just said that. You
Okay.
have, I take having a dog so seriously. I will only have one at a time. And before I had Enzo, I didn't have a dog for 5 years because I just take it very seriously. And so I
I,
think that's really awesome of you that it's like, look, I'm contributing to the dog world all day long. And when I'm ready to also take that into my personal life and really be serious about it, I'll know when the time is right. But right now, I'm not feeling it. And that would be a terrible way to bring a dog into your life, right?
yeah, yeah, because I mean, my dog. When I get my dog, I mean, I want to dedicate him the time and effort that most people do. I don't want to leave him alone like for 8 hours, 5 hours alone. Like I want
I
to
just,
engage with him.
I don't get it. I'm not trying to make people feel terrible about themselves that have to crate their dogs for 8 hours because they need to make a living. That's not my
Yeah, of
intention
course.
here.
Yes.
But for me, um, that will never be a scenario in which I have a dog. I can't even, like, I don't like, if Enzo's going to be alone longer than like 4 or 5 hours, I would just take him over to my mom's because they're not, it's just a thing with me. we especially because there's a family here, and the
Yeah.
family always leaves, and just leaving him, it just it leaves a bad taste in my mouth. And so I always make sure that, but I also recognize that sometimes I need to just leave him at home. So if I'm going to run to the
Oh,
grocery
yes.
store,
Yes, of
he's
course.
fine. He's fine. But
Yeah.
when we're talking upwards of 4, 5, 6, 7 hours, absolutely not. Absolutely not. He will, unless he's in the hospital and they're going to be letting him out, and doing stuff with
Yeah.
him. I just think that it's something that we need to change in the way that
Yeah.
we think about dogs. And I would encourage people that do not have a dog yet, that are thinking about getting one. If you have a job where you are away for that long during the day, and for anywhere that's over 8 hours or more, and you cannot come home on your lunch break, and you cannot afford to have somebody help you with your dog, or have someone in your family that would do it, please do not get a dog. Please do not get a dog, because let me tell you what's going on there. You're trying to get a companion for yourself, and but that's not what's happening. You're getting a prisoner.
Mhm.
You're getting a captive that cannot leave you now, and that can only go about in the world if you say so, when you want, on your dime, when it's your idea, if only if you feel like it. That's a prisoner. That's not a companion. That's not a pet.
Yeah, I do agree.
So
And
there's plenty of people that do it successfully, that have figured out a way, that do work longer hours. And so I don't want to make it sound like you can't figure something out. You can. But if your intention is to just get the dog and then not figure none of that shit out, please don't. Oh, please don't. Get a cat. Love that. They would be like, "I'll see you in 3 days, boo. Give me an automatic feeder and water, and I'll be
I'm good.
fine. I don't even know
Yeah.
your name." That's a great pet for that.
Yeah.
And cats are awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. Yes. I agree with everything you said there as well, because a lot of people got their dog during COVID because of companionship most than anything else. And I do agree that
Yeah, I get the
you
trap.
have seen that most dogs after COVID, they when they go out, they're kind of scared, more anxious than normal. And I mean, that's what happens when you don't socialize your dog enough
Yeah,
since a puppy.
I think we all can admit that the world was never the same after 2020, and that we were all creatures that are beholden to society were affected. All of us. I think there's just a lot. The kids that were in, you know, primary school to middle school at the time, they really suffered. Not, I mean, that's a pivotal time of education, and there's just so much that happened during that time. I get
Yeah.
and understand why people were looking for something as a bright spot in their life. So I understand why people did it, and where their thought process was on that. But you know what? We now all know. We all learned from COVID that you don't get dogs during a pandemic. Now we all know. Culture knows. It's kind of a joke between, we call them COVID puppies.
Coffee puppies. Yeah.
Like anybody outside of society would be like, what is a COVID? What's a COVID puppy? But if you say that in the dog world, people are like, I know what that means. So now
Yeah.
we know,
Yeah, I
and
agree.
hopefully we can. I hope COVID doesn't happen again. But if something like that happens, we won't repeat that mistake.
I agree. One of the reasons I wanted to talk to you is because of how during your post you're very expressive. You just don't care about. What I mean by that is that you just don't care about what people think. That's what I mean, and that's
That's
something
a
that
great
I.
way of saying it, Gabriel.
What
It's a very nice, kind way of saying it. Thank you.
I mean, but that's the point. I mean, and I do like that because I think a lot of people stop themselves from doing what they want because of being scared of judgment of other people. And recently, I have seen your post in the store in your Instagram stories, and just the way you're open. That's that's something that I really like about you, and that was one of the main reasons that I wanted to talk to you. And my question is, what made you be so open to the world, to the internet?
Because that's a very, very layered answer. Wow. I think that vulnerability is a superpower. I think that it's like a superpower. I think that you can literally draw human beings and other creatures into you with vulnerability, and vulnerability like that, really, like authentically. I'm not talking about where people are trauma dumping. I'm not talking about where people are like just telling you everything that happened to them. I'm talking about where someone shares something really personal in hopes to connect with you. That's what I'm talking about. That is, I think, like this thing that human beings have that we just don't, I don't have the words for it, that we just don't use, and that we lost and forgot is like this way of connecting us to each other. It's like a lot of people don't naturally know how to be compassionate. A lot of people don't naturally know how to be maybe a little bit empathetic. And I also think that people, when you said just a little bit ago, when you were explaining all of this, of why you asked me here, the reason it comes off like I don't care is because I believe what I'm saying. It really doesn't have, I do care. I do care. Because I care that people hear what I'm saying and that they can connect with me and that they feel comfortable approaching me. But what that really is that you're seeing, that you're feeling from me, is authenticity. What you're feeling is I believe what I'm saying, and then my actions align with what I'm saying. So when you look at it, it's like, oh, this is very clear. Okay. Now, whether you like me or not, that, that's probably a lot personal taste, and I recognize some people may just not like me, and that's okay. But where that came from was because I had to do it or I was going to die. I had to learn how to tell the truth about myself, or I could not physically live any longer. It was either going to be trigger warning. It was either going to be suicide. It was going to be the streets, which would have led to death. It was, I don't really know. I don't really know what, there was a lot of psychiatric hospital stuff. A lot of that. A lot of rehabs. It was just this kind of, and so I just didn't want to do that anymore. I didn't want to do that anymore. And so I found out where I could go to get help. And then I took the suggestions of those people. And along the way, I learned how to tell the truth, like actually really tell the truth about myself. And that what other people thought about me really wasn't any of my business. It was I telling the truth all the time, the truth as I know it to be. So when I came into the dog industry and I started like I did a board and train, and I could see immediately that this was wrong. I could immediately see that this was outsourcing parenting. I could immediately see that this was perpetuating the problem of people not doing the work.
The world,
I
yeah.
mean, immediately. And I never did another one. That was years ago. I never did another one, and have been a very outspoken, I don't know the word. I've been a
Individual.
very outspoken advocate against for-profit board and trains. Not
I
all
see.
board and trains, because I think that they do have use, but the kind of crank them out board and trains.
Yeah,
Um,
the ones that want to get the job done, and that's it.
yeah. And I also, I think that the way that we deliver dog training is inappropriate and incorrect. I don't, yeah, I'll stand by that. I think that expecting people to understand what we're talking about and really be pretty good at it in like 1 hour blurbs is a really bizarre way of expecting a human being to change things that are fundamentally like things that are going on inside of them in relationship to this to the dog and really life in general. it, I just don't think it's a very effective mode of connecting with someone to meet them in that way over something that is really actually a pretty serious part of their life. So I think we should talk to them every day. And that was controversial. I mean, people were straight up like, you're unethical. You're an unethical dog trainer for doing virtual training.
Why? Why would you be unethical?
They were like, you can't, what if it's aggressive? What if it's this? What if it's that? That's unethical to do it virtually. And I was like, I think the exact opposite. I think what you're doing, standing in that dog's presence that's already struggling with other human beings that does not know you, is unethical. Like, people thought if I was not physically there with the dog, seeing what was happening, that what I was instructing them to do could not possibly be correct. I mean,
Interesting.
LOL.
That's yeah. I mean,
I didn't listen. I didn't listen because I knew. I had to believe myself and what I knew and just keep
yeah.
going and keep going and keep going. And that was hundreds and hundreds of clients ago. And now I will not see dogs in person, only if they've completed virtual training, and I will not charge them for it. I'll just stop to say hi if it's appropriate for that dog. Like, if it's like a dog that would enjoy something like that, I'll just pop in and see him
Yeah.
for free if I'm there in that city. But because what they're paying
That's
for
well.
is me. They're paying for the celebrity experience, and I don't want to participate in that. Like, I'm literally a kindergarten teacher. I'm not, not literally. I'm
I
in the
was.
dog world.
I was
I'm a
about to
kindergarten
ask.
teacher. I'm not a celebrity. That's not what I'm doing. That's not what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm literally like your
Yeah.
AA sponsor that you have to talk to every day to get through this shit. And then
Yeah.
and then you're like, "Oh, I love them." And they become your friend, and 5 years later you're like, "I'm so glad that Jerry made me do that one thing that I didn't want to do. Cuz look at us now." And like, they think of you fondly when they look at their dog, and like, that's what it's supposed to be like. And I mean, that's what
Yeah.
my life is like. I get messages every single day from people that are just saying the kindest things, and I can tell that they feel hopeful. They've seen change and progress in just stuff that they just learned for free from me. Just watching my Instagram, like, that to me is the best. That's the best. The all the rest of it's great, and the people that come and spend more money are great. But the best thing is when somebody that didn't have any money, that doesn't have access to you, that doesn't can learn from you and have their life changed, and spent nothing. That's like, oh, I just want to cry about it right now. I just think it's so wonderful. Like, wow, what a turnaround from somebody that used to cause so much heartache. I really did. For a very long time, I took things that weren't mine to take. I caused my family so much grief and probably sadness and depression. And so now it's like totally the opposite. It just feels really good.
That's very nice. Nice to hear. That's very inspiring. I would say to hear.
I feel like I have to do it for the
Now
rest of
I'm
my life
kind
to
of
even
curious.
remotely pay it back. Like, to even remotely balance the
Yeah.
scales, I have to do this for like 40 more years.
I mean, that's good. That's good. I guess you're
Yeah, I
happy
mean,
happier now.
I guess I could have a worse attitude about it, but it's good.
Yeah. Um. So you do virtual training, right?
hmm
How does that look like?
So it looks like you meet with your trainer, you don't meet with them. So the first thing that I should say about Tulsa Pack is that we do everything asynchronously. That's why we have clients all over the world and I have apprentices all over the world because you don't have to be there at the same time. It's 2024. Like, we don't need to be doing Zooms for anything other than podcast interviews, or meetings where we all need to physically be speaking at the same time, which is never in the coaching process. Never. When is the time that you need to physically right then interrupt your coach in the middle of what they're saying to ask a question? You would not do that. You would wait till they were done. You would either ask them to clarify, or you would do it and just kind of, well, I don't know what they mean, but I'm going to try it anyway. Or you would do it and just wait for them to say if it was wrong or not. You would not interrupt them. So what I love about
Okay.
asynchronous teaching is that everyone gets to complete their thoughts fully and totally. And then I respond to that. And then they respond to that. It's way different. Nobody else, I mean, I don't know, I invented it, so I guess nobody else does it. But of course, all the people at Tulsa Pack, and then my close friends that have their own training businesses, like Handover Rover, Freed by Training, they all do the daily method where we do this virtually. And we talk to our clients, basically Monday through Friday. Some people do Monday through Saturday, or whatever. But what I ask my clients to do is check your app once a day, see what I've said, see what I'm asking you to do, which will probably take you 2 minutes, but I'm
See.
going to start to teach you how to have a relationship with a dog that isn't just about you. And how, and also I got to kind of get to know your dog. So we're going to learn all of this together, and like, what is best, what is beneficial to both, what do we need to throw out the window? And we just meet every day very briefly, but we're never there at the same time. So I'm starting to build in a habit for people. It's a habit. We do it
I
every day,
see.
every day, every day, every day. And they start to see, like, oh, so it's not about these things that you're going to teach me and then my dog's going to magically be awesome. It's about you teaching me how you train dogs. How do you train a dog? Like, not tricks. I don't teach any obedience. I don't teach sit. I don't teach down. I don't teach any of that. No, we hardly ever talk about
Okay.
that. Hardly ever. I just assume that everybody's dog has a sit and a down generally when they come to me, and almost all of them do. I would say 99% of them
Okay.
do. So it's not something I have to have discussion with them about. But I don't teach obedience, literally none. I teach reading body language, managing your dog's nervous system. That's massive. If you can learn how to manage your dog's nervous system and help them with that, their nervous system becomes more responsive to management, and they respond more readily when they're in higher states of arousal to you rather than the things that are in the environment. That's why I'd be walking around with my pit bull everywhere, and he seems fine. He still does things. He's a bully. He still does things that every bully would do.
Yeah.
If a squirrel ran across, that dog would tear it up. You know what I mean? Like, he still is every bit of what he's bred to be. I just know how to manage him
Yeah.
with, for the most part, without a leash. I know how to use my skills, and then I have the leash there if I need it. If I mess up, if something happens too quickly that I can't manage it appropriately, something sneaks up on me
Yeah.
that I didn't see, those kinds of things. Then I'll pick up the leash or step on it. But outside of that, I don't want him to experience life on the end of the leash. I don't want him to experience always being attached to me. That's fucking weird. Like, oh my God, it stresses me out thinking about not having autonomy or sovereignty of self, and
Yeah.
being able to make a decision that you want when you want to make it. Like, that affects dogs. It does. Never being able to make their own choices. And then when they do make choices, they get punished for them. You can't tell me that that doesn't affect somebody.
Yeah. I do agree that I think we have to help the dogs to make the right choices.
Yeah.
They obviously are gonna do the wrong choices because they don't know better and they don't think like us. An example would
Mm-hmm.
be if they start chasing a car, it's not
Mm-hmm.
because they want to chase a car, it's because they think it's fun.
Yeah, it's like, they have a predatory sequence for a reason. And
Yeah.
It, it's not something that you can,
Turn
remove
off.
from them without removing the essence of who they are. And so, yeah, so that is a
Yeah.
great example that, we have to teach them an alternative behavior and also manage their, feelings around the situation so that they don't chase cars in the first place. That's always the goal. I think most people don't realize that their dog has an emotion, and then their dog has a nervous system response, and then their dog have behaviors that happen because of that nervous system response, and the behaviors that their body and their brain are used to doing inside of that response. They'll just default. We get
Yeah.
we get good at what we practice, and what fires together wires together. So if dogs repeat chasing the car, for example, they will then want to chase the car more because then it's reinforcing and they're getting to do something that a dog actually probably thinks is pretty fun, over and over and over again. And it
Yeah.
makes it harder for them to, you know, they certainly can't naturally stop that
Yeah.
on their own at that point.
Yeah. I think just people don't know how to manage dogs, and it's really cool that you're not focusing on obedience, but you're focusing on how people can how that you're helping people on how they can enjoy more of their dog with giving them more freedom.
Yes, that's a great way to put it. That's a wonderful way to put it. Is I want people to think about, is my dog safe for society, and am I meeting their needs to help ensure that safety? Like, we don't want our dogs hurting people and we don't want our dogs to be hurt. And
Of
so to
course.
do that, we have to make sure that they're not all effed up on the inside. You can look to the United States penal system for examples. There's a lot of hurt people in there getting punished for a lot of stuff that could have been prevented had they had different circumstances, different structures of care for themselves. And so that's what I'm doing. You highlighted it really well. You said it really well.
That's really cool. And now I want to ask you about bullies. I know you're a
Okay.
bully advocate,
Yes.
and I just want to hear your thoughts on what's going on in the UK, and what do you think we have to do to help the bullies.
Okay. Well, my thoughts about what are going on in the UK are predominantly based around political systems and structures. So I'm just going to say this. In Europe, in the UK, which I'm only saying that because of the Brexit thing. Otherwise, I would have just said Europe. Um, I don't want to say the wrong thing, but there is a different system of government there. So if you are a person who believes in a lot of government regulation and in bans and things like that, you would do better living in European society. Here in America, we're not going to ban stuff. They won't even, you could have trigger warning, child violence. You could have children dying in schools, and we're not going to ban nothing. It's just it's a different set of beliefs. It's a different mentality. Generally, the reasons that governments ban things are because they think the citizens are stupid and they can't possibly figure it out on their own. So now they have to come in and just say, you can't have that because when you did have it, everything was fucked up. That's what that is. But that's a different belief system than in America. So that's why you have that over there and you don't have it here. So there's that. I think that bans are a response and a reaction to a society that's suffering from something. So I'm not going to say that the ban is like, oh, that makes no sense to me at all. That's not true. My personal opinion is that most people should not have bullies or pit bulls or staffies or Rottweilers or Dobermans or any of those dogs, because I think that 90% of people don't understand what they're getting into with a dog like that. They don't get it. And we're seeing the ramifications of that in multiple places in the world right now. What do I think that we can do to help? Well, that's why I push so much to teach about arousal, because I think the lack of managing of a dog's arousal will get you into deadly serious consequences with dogs like that, because those dogs in full arousal are designed to do something very specific, and that very specific thing is to fuck shit up. And so when you have a bunch of people that have a bunch of dogs that don't know how to manage their arousal, and that dog has no impulse control, has not been really taught any alternative behaviors that it can choose to be successful. Let's even go over into the realm, if you were to train like this, which I do not, but the dogs maybe has an e-collar on and they're using heavy aversive punishment to try and control some of the behavior. That could also be a possibility. That's something people do. Where you're getting into a situation where the risk to the public is ultra high. I think it's at an all-time high. So I would encourage people, unless you have an interest in having a dog that's really designed to catch wild boars out in the woods and that would do best to be doing that, don't get that dog. So that's the preventative measure. The response, I think, is people that do have them, I try to provide as much low cost and free information as I can. I'm also involved with Aaron Lewis, who has a really popular Instagram account, Sweet Gigi, little Gigi, if you watch her. He's got a bully, and he does bully breed meetups, and it's the Bully Breed Bunch on Instagram. I would love, love, love it if you would contact him and interview him. He's
I just
absolutely,
wrote the
he's
name Erin
fantastic.
Lewis, right?
Yeah, he's great. It's Sweet Gigi is his main account, and then he's got the Bully Breed Bunch. So I also partnered with him to provide all attendees of the meetups that he hosts with free education. So they leave with all of my courses, because I think that every person that at least in San Diego, every person in San Diego that comes to those meetups, and we're working on extending that to more places now, but it just takes time to do it right. Those people will all have access. So my goal is to be a provider of free education for anyone that has a bully that would seek it out, so that there's always something that they can get and find that will actually help them with their dog, not like obedience stuff and sport work and all this other stuff that when you start looking into behavior modification, it will kind of throw you a direction in the algorithms. And so I think with partnering with Aaron, I've tapped into a portion of people that aren't already in the dog training algorithm. So they're new to this. And hopefully we can bypass some confusion for them and give them an
Yeah.
immediate place that they can go to get help. Now, people are probably wondering, a lot of people wouldn't know what I'm even talking about, but am I a balance trainer or am I a force free trainer? A lot of people ask that. And I, neither. Neither. If you watched my training, you could probably classify me as a force free trainer. But I created something called the open minded approach. And it is, I think, probably Lima based. So least intrusive, minimally aversive. But Lima is really just structured around what's best for the dog. And I include also what's best for society. So we have society, the human being, and the dog. And all of those need to have benefit and have their needs met. And that's what the approach that I created is geared towards. And that's why I focus on emotions, nervous systems, and behaviors.
Wow, that's makes sense how everything just connected. Like
Yeah.
that makes so much sense.
And it's so much more, I don't know the word, it feels like you can reach it. It feels like,
More
oh, you could
achievable,
just grab,
more
like it's low hanging fruit, it's
it's like
right there
right
for
there. Yeah,
you. Yeah, anybody at any level can step in and take my classes and do what I'm doing. At any level, which is exciting.
that's yeah. I mean, the way you just finished the sentence, it was like something click. It was like that makes so much sense now.
Good. I hope so. I
Mm.
hope it does to people that are listening too.
Yeah. So Jerry, thank you so much for your time. I wish I could speak more to you, but you have more stuff to do. So I'm
Well,
gonna
we'll do it again. Well, you can have me
yes,
back after you've talked to Aaron.
Aaron, I
And then I
will.
also want you to talk to Madison, my best friend,
Matt,
one of my best friends. I have like a few of them because they're so great. And
what's
she's freed by training.
free bright training?
Yeah. And her and I have a podcast together. It's called Unpacked, and it's like a
Okay,
clinical approach. So to people that are really looking to learn about real behavior mod, um, like case studies, all of updates on how the clients did after months and months and months. We have all of that. And that's called Unpacked. You can listen on any platform. And then Madison has a new one out called Dog Training Bites. And the
okay,
roster of the people that are on there, I'm just like, she's got some heavy hitters and she would love to talk to you.
all right, all right.
She's
I'll
awesome. You're going to get great stuff. And she has one of the coolest stories, just a really beautiful story of what it's like to change.
change. That's cool. Yeah, that was the topic that I wanted when you got into it. I was like, I want to know more about it, but it's like we would go.
We could go on and on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it was like so maybe for next time or something like
Yeah,
that.
we'll have that as time number two. We'll go into all of that a little bit more.
But yeah, thank you so much for your time, and you don't know how much I appreciate it. Just taking time off your day. You probably are very busy, and I do appreciate this. All the information you gave me, your knowledge, your story is very inspiring and very helpful.
Well, thank you for asking me to be here so I could tell it. I appreciate it.